All right. Well, 32 after the hour, and I suppose is an effort to make sure that we're keeping everybody's time straight, using our time wisely, because I know we have a limited amount of it. Make sure we get to any and all questions you have that we can answer. So why don't we get started? Hello, welcome. If you don't know who I am, my name is Joe Polasic. I'm the state E-rate coordinator here at the Michigan Department of Education. I'm joined today by my colleague Ashley Harris and my colleague Monica Butler. Ashley's going to be helping me manage the chat and keep track of folks entering the presentation. Monica will be doing the all-important Nexus, demo. So thank you very much to Monica for making the time and taking the time to join us today. It's a simple application, but we want to make sure that we're showing people who may or may not have been in Nexus and necessarily understand how that program works, where we're at with it. So with no further ado, let's jump in. Of nuts, who's going to be on this thing? We all know why we're here, right? The E-Rate Special Construction Matching Fund Grant. It's a reboot of a grant we've done before. So in that regard, it should be review in a lot of cases. For those of you who were part of organizations that either took part in this grant last time or looked into it last time, this is kind of more of the same. Slight differences. The biggest difference, of course, being that we're putting the grant in Nexus. So with that in mind, let's kick it off. Want to go through your session norms? What do we expect out of you as a participant? Well, questions are absolutely welcome. And I want you to do it during the webinar, if you please. If you could put it in the chat. As I said, actually, it's going to be monitoring the chat for us. So we'll have somebody making sure that we keep track of questions and flag me down or Monica, if the case may be. If there's other issues, let us know. But please put it in the chat. Afterwards, we're going to have you raise your hands, and then we'll do questions that way. So thanks again for joining us. Questions are important because the more questions you have now, the less you can pepper us with later. That's all. We're all for that, especially one of the reasons we're recording this. So if someone has your same question, they can get an answer. So what's on tap today? Here's your session agenda.
Hey Joe, can I pipe in for just a second? I think someone is having trouble. They put in the chat they're having a little bit trouble hearing you.
I'm going to take these daggone headphones off.
It was a little spotty.
I don't know what it is, if it's these headphones or if it's my computer itself, but frankly, I have fine time in Teams, don't have any issues with sound, but as soon as I switch to Zoom, we have some issues. However, Zoom is more accessible for folks outside the organization. If you don't have Teams, it's easier to work with Zoom, and sometimes Teams doesn't work with other people when they join remotely. So thank you for the note. I hope you can hear me now. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate you. So what are we talking about today? What's the grant for? That's pretty simple and straightforward, but kind of important if you think about it. Clarity on who can apply. Again, this is an E-rate grant, so we're talking about E-rate eligible institutions to E-rate eligible places. We'll get more into that in a second. And what needs to be in place before you apply? We're talking about using state systems. We're talking about using E-rate. So what do you need to have access to? What do you need to be registered in before you can get through this process? Then we get to the real star of the show here. Just to really twist the knife on Monica, who will be doing the navigating Nexus section with us. A live demo of what the application looks like in Nexus, and then taking questions through that process if they exist. And then we'll finish up with some timelines. What do we know? What do we not know? There will be things that we don't know as far as end dates at this point. Has left to do with E-rate. We'll get to that in a minute. And then we'll kind of discuss the next steps after that. This is phase one, a two-phase application. And so we'll touch on what that means later. Of course, we'll take your questions. So this is a special construction matching fund grant. What does that mean? E-rate and USAC, the Universal Service Administrative Company, the nonprofit government entity that runs the E-rate program. This is how they define special construction. The upfront, non-recurring cost of deploying new or upgraded network facilities to an E-rate eligible entity. So upfront, non-recurring. Non-recurring, that means one time only. We talk about monthly recurring. That's the bills that you would get from your service provider for transport costs, for broadband access costs. similar to what we get at home, right? You get a phone bill, similar to that, right? Those are your monthly recurring costs of deploying a new or upgraded network facility. So it's important to note for folks, I get this question a lot. Is this only for new construction? If I don't have fiber, what if I've got an aging fiber network? Can I rip and replace? The answer is absolutely. What if I have a fiber connection that I lease? Could I replace that leased connection using this grant dollars, using this fund? Absolutely. Again, the answer is yes. So, and the key here, of course, is E-rate eligible institutions and entities. E-rate is meant for E-rate eligible entities, which are schools and libraries. In the state of Michigan, we consider government-funded pre-K, publicly funded pre-K as an eligible institution for E-rate. That shouldn't be news, but I'm sure that it is to some or many of you. It's one of those things we've tried to publicize and make sure we had out there, and it's been hit and miss on how we get around to using it. So case-by-case questions on that, or if you have questions today on that, we'll be able to take them in time. We're talking about fiber connections to E-rate eligible institutions. And again, this grant is for fiber. There are many ways to connect your building. You could do point-to-point, you could do wireless, you could do copper, you could do cable. All of these things are ways to connect your buildings. However, this grant is for fiber construction. And it can be any of these three, though I've got a favorite. We'll get to that in a minute. For your least lit connections, because we talk about least lit, least dark, and then self-provision. These are the three types of fiber connections. Least lit is provider owned and maintained. You as the applicant, you're going to pay a fee to have your data transported on the network. That lease includes network equipment. They take care of the maintenance, anything that goes along with the fiber or the regular upkeep of it. That's all paid for on a monthly basis by you. You could pay to have a leased connection made to your building or multiple recipients, your consortium, however you want to fund it or set it up rather. And that leased lit connection, which would have monthly recurring costs, we would pay for up to 10% of the project cost, the one-time non-recurring project costs, right? That includes engineering, that includes permitting, make ready, of course, the actual consumables, fiber and conduit. All of those costs are eligible for the one-time support, okay? It's just to make it clear to folks, you can file for the one-time cost and get the E-rate support through this grant. The monthly recurring cost, anything that would be a monthly recurring cost if you're renting equipment as opposed to buying it up front. If you are leasing month to month, the extra cost of leasing, not covered by this specific grant. This is the one-time cost of making that connection to your building. Lease dark, this includes the IRUs, the indefeasible rights of use. That basically says, these are mine. There are many like it, but these are mine. In these cases, a lot of times you'll have a conduit with several strands of fiber, let's say 144 or 288, and you would sign a lease for some of those strands, say 4 to 8 to 12, depending on how many would be needed for your building, for your buildings, for your district, for your ISD, to get the service levels that you need. You could pay to put in leased dark fiber, and you would have then an IRU, is how you would set it up, to basically say, these are mine, this is the dedicated service lines that feed my space, and then there would be a cost allocation for the rest of those strands. One of the ways that E-rate can get, as I like to say, get it where it ain't. We could use E-rate to fund the construction of fiber connections where it currently is not or is too expensive. And in a lease dark model, you could have the party who lays the fiber own it, and then you would have to separately take care of your own equipment to light it, and then who would take bids on who would actually provide broadband service through that stretch of fiber that is yours through that IRU. And the rest of those strands, even though they were put in through an E-rate project, which are not dedicated to an E-rate entity, are then free to serve the community at large, businesses, homes, all through that space providing extensions to the fiber networks through our state, and still serving the needs of the school. In this case, maintenance would still be up to you of those, excuse me, it depends. It could be up to you, it could be up to the vendor, it depends on your agreement with that vendor as part of laying and constructing that dark fiber circuit. Remember, the E-rate equipment, excuse me, the network equipment that you need to light this baby, it's E-rate eligible, but it's a separate cost from the project cost here. And the final one, this is my favorite. Self-provision means you're going to own it, you're going to maintain it, you're going to get the network equipment to light it. Again, all three of those things, E-rateable, which means that using your discount, you can save that percentage on any and all bills related to installing the fiber, maintaining the fiber, lighting the fiber, all through the life cycle of that fiber. It is yours, it is owned by you. And again, in a build like that, you can still work with the vendor to include more strands than what is needed from the E-rate applicant to then serve the public at large. Again, businesses, homes, providing backhaul across spaces, more fiber where there are deserts or where there is not another provider to provide some sort of competition to help with pricing. These are all good things, right? These are great, good and great things that you can provide through your builds to your area. Now, as an aside, whether you plan a self-provision network, again, the additional strands, this is important. I want to make sure that people hear this because it's important. It's kind of one of these things that gets forgotten as soon as we start doing the project. E-rate will cover the percentage of the build based upon your discount percentage, right? Then you have the state funds, which we will match up to 10% of the undiscounted portion of your bill, leveraging an additional 10% up to through E-rate and through USAC. So if you have an 80% discount as an entity, you file for this, you can get 20% taken up through my grant dollars from the state and through the additional dollars that E-rate will provide just by the state of Michigan having these available dollars for you. If you're an 80% district, it's zero out of pocket for the one-time costs approved through the bill in the end. It's a reimbursement as opposed to an upfront, here's your money so you can pay with it, right? You got to pay it and you'll get reimbursed. But in the end, it's 0% out of pocket, $0 out of pocket. Same if you're a 90%. You get 5 from me and an extra 5 from USAC, which gets you then to the 100%, 0 out of pocket after you've got the approved build cost. Again, taken up through this grant, okay? 80% or higher, 0 out of pocket for the one-time construction cost. And you get to add fiber strands that can be used by the vendor to serve non-E-rate eligible institutions, okay? We can literally serve everybody through that. Yeah, little fast there, Joe. There we go. And you hit the wheel sometimes, it goes crazy. So I mentioned there's a bunch of systems in there. So when we're talking about E-rate, you're going to have access to the EPIC system, the E-rate Productivity Center, okay? That's where all the business of E-rate is done. If your entity isn't registered in EPIC, you need to get that done. If you're talking about buildings that you need to register in EPIC, build entity numbers are needed because you can't file for E-rate if you don't have the build entity numbers for the endpoints that you want to connect, right? So that's the E-rate stuff. When we're talking about getting into Nexus, you're going to need a My Login access through the My Login for Business, third-party access to Michigan's externally facing systems, right? Because it's Department of Ed stuff, you're going to need a MEAS account, the Michigan Education Information System account. Easy to get, and I'll go through these all in a second, I promise. And of course, even when you have all those things, you have to be tied to a building entity or an ISD entity or a district entity in Nexus with the correct permissions to then file this application, okay? Knowing we need all those things, what if you don't have them? Well, you're going to need to get them, right? I know that these are links, and I didn't want to put big, long links on the screen, but I've included them. We'll send these out with PDF. It's in the notes too. How to get a badge, how to register a user, how to get a MEAS account, and then, of course, how to get a My Login account. When you're associated with a My Login account, you need to be associated for Nexus purposes with a district, a building, an ISD, a registered entity within Nexus to be able to get access. So if you don't have those, we'll have links that we can share out as part of sharing this after we're done. So then what do, right? So say you got access to all that stuff. Well, the starting point for me is the E-rate process. And you can find all the steps to the E-rate process here at this link that I'm not going to click. But it's there if you need it. My thought process is most of you are clear on what E-rate is. For those of you that aren't, this information. So at least a place to find a primer. That's going to take you to the USAC website. It's going to walk you through the basics of what to expect when you're E-rating, as it were. So keep that in mind. If you want to blow through this part, that's fine, but there's a resource if you need it. The idea, of course, is that you're going to file your Form 470, which is the E-rate form where you're seeking bids on a project in this case, right? You're seeking bids on a fiber project, special construction fiber project. You're going to have an RFP as part of that. You're going to have to request bids on lease lit, lease dark, and self-provision, as well as every other connection type under the sun, because that's just how we have to do it in E-rate, okay? Most of you will be doing this with a consultant. They will know this thing inside and out. We have gotten these through in the past. I have great respect and know that our consultants know how to do this. So if you've got questions, start with your ISD Tech Director. They don't cost a dime. But if you have an E-rate consultant, those are the people that are going to know these also inside and out, right? So once we've done our filing, we can then, knowing that we're going to file for this, right? We're going to accept bids. We're eventually going to choose a winning bid and work through the E-rate process further. We should probably get into Nexus and take this very simple, very short application. And once we've completed that, we'll have a letter of conditional approval. So Monica, if you're ready, I will stop sharing my screen and you can start sharing yours.
Absolutely, I'm ready. Good afternoon, everybody.
If I click the right button. There it is.
Let me find. Whoops. I think you need to give me rights to share.
Ashley, I'm just wondering if we didn't make Monica a co-host.
We should be able to right here in the meeting. I am looking right now. Just a moment. Apologize, everybody. Just one quick second here. I am wondering if we can only have maybe one co-host, because generally I should be able to click on those three dots and allow another person to become a host. Joe, if you click on those three dots and you hit reclaim host next to my
Well, I'll
name.
tell you what, if we can't get that cranked up just yet, why don't we continue? And we get that sorted out and get back to it.
Sounds good.
There we go. Ashley, can you give me a wave if you can see that?
Yes, I can.
Cool, thank you. So we'll get back to the network the Nexus demonstration. No worries there. Wouldn't be a presentation if we didn't have some sort of hit. So appreciate it. We talked about completing 470, right? And then you get into Nexus, complete your application through Nexus. You're going to leave that application process with a letter of conditional approval. It's going to say, hey, good news. You're conditionally approved, which basically says, if you get approved by USAC for this bill, we'll definitely give you some money at the end, up to 10% of the total cost, right? So that's what you're going to leave that phase 1 application with. Why is that important? Because you're going to need that for your Form 471. The idea is we want to make sure that we have your Forms 471 package that includes your RFP, your contract, your signed contract with the vendor to do the work. The scope's very clear. You've got a narrative explaining what you're connecting and why. All of these things are great. Then you have that letter of conditional approval. Why is that important? Well, when you get approved, I don't want to have you go back to get the additional dollars that would be available to you by having approval through our system, or rather through our grant program. Because if you submitted without that letter of conditional approval, you wouldn't have the additional 10% rolled into your E-rate award, right? Your FCDL that you'll get through the PIA review, that's Program Integrity Assurance Review. Where you submit your Form 471, and somebody looks at it and says, okay, maybe I might need some more information. Or, this is the greatest application I've ever seen in my life. Let's definitely fund this baby. Either way, in the end, after the end PIA review, you will receive your FCDL, your funding commitment decision letter. Now, this may be a thumbs up. This may be a thumbs down. In the event that it's a thumbs up, yes, you're approved. It'll have a clear number. It should include that calculation of the additional up to 10% in discount rate for you because of the availability of our state knowledge, right? So that's why that FCDL, that's why the letter of conditional approval is so important when you submit your Form 471, so that we don't have to go back after you've received your FCDL and say, oh, hey, wait, hang on. We've got this letter of conditional approval. I need you guys to re-up my, I need you guys to change my FCDL because I should have more discount percentage that you've given me credit for in my current FCDL. That would cause them to have to wait another review process. It would cause them to have to send a revised FCDL, our FCDL. And frankly, this program can get cumbersome enough without having to have us include a different and an extra step, right? So the idea is we want to package it all together early and go gangbusters, okay? Timeline. This is where we get a little funky, right? So the grant application in Nexus, 100% open. Form 470 window, 100% open. You could be doing right now your bid process. You may have submitted a Form 470 already and are working through the bid evaluation process, right? That's all possible. If you haven't done it yet, it's not too late. But know this: the minimum times that E-rate requires a Form 470 to be posted is 28 days. That's the minimum. For a fiber project, the minimum that I suggest as the best practice is 60 days. Minimum. That's because these are so complicated, right? We're talking about vendors needing time to understand from here to here and what else is in between the here to here, right? The permitting, the polls, the cost per mile, what route can we take, what route can't we take? Could they propose a route that's maybe longer but saves money in permitting or polls because of other factors, right? You don't know unless you give them the time to sort through those things. It's impossible to do a good fiber bid in 28 days, right? So if you haven't posted an RFP Form 470 for your proposed bid, my suggestion is to do it now, or as soon as possible. And as soon as you're able, where you can get a good RFP together, where you're clear about where you're trying to get connections to and from, right? All that information, the better the information you provide to vendors, the better bids, the bids that you're going to get back, right? Garbage in, garbage out, make sure you're giving good information. So all that's the pre-Form 470 stuff, right? The Form 471 window, we do not have an open date for that yet. It has not been announced. Usually that is around the beginning of January. early January, mid-January at the latest. And of course, the Form 470 window closes June. I do not like folks who want to know the deadlines. Just trust me, it's going to be a minute. So if you're worried about when it closes, we're asking the wrong questions. As long as we're working towards the right answers and the right outcomes, you don't need to know what the end date is yet. Okay? So this is the part I had earmarked questions. I would love to go back and give Monica an opportunity to jump in and do that nexus. Thank you. Then I'll do this. I will stop sharing. And we will allow Monica. Thank you, Monica, for your patience and your help. Thank you, Ashley, for helping us out there. And we will allow Monica to.
Right. Okay, so can everybody see my screen, my Nexus screen?
Yes.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, so hi, my name is Monica Butler. I am the Nexus Applications Manager at MDE, so glad to be with you all here today. As Joe said, this is a pretty simple application, or as we call it, the E-rate phase 1. As Joe spoke to, if you don't currently have access to Nexus, you will need to collect a MEIS ID, and you will need to create a My Login for Business account. We do have some TA materials on the Nexus website that talk you through this. The applications do need to be initiated by your entity authorized official. So I want to make sure to say that out loud. So if you happen to be the tech director and you are not as well the authorized official, you will need to be sure once you have your MEIS account and your My Login account and you've actually clicked into Nexus, you'll have to have your authorized official initiate this application, and then they can add you to the application as well later. So that's just a little bit of the housekeeping pieces, because I want to make sure that you know that you can't just go get a MEIS, go get a My Login, click in, and then boom, you'll see the application. So I know they have a help email address in here for the MDE Ed Tech office and their PowerPoint. So you can reach out to them first on some of these steps if need be. So essentially, if you can still see my screen, this is our test system. So just know whatever it is that I am doing and whatever entity I may be in the system, this is not something that is actually happening in our real world. When we are in Nexus, if you are the authorized official, or you would need to talk to your authorized official, they will find the application for E-rate phase 1 under My Opportunities. They will scroll down and find the E-rate phase 1 right here, and they will click on the name. And then because I have I'm using a test ID that has security permissions for multiple entities, it's got to drop down here. Otherwise, it would just have one school. So we'll just go ahead and select Benton Harbor. I'll click proceed. And then Nexus will think for a minute, and then it will take you into the application. Now with that, when you first go into the application, you are on the document overview page, or sometimes what we call the landing page of the application. It has several different pieces of information up here in the white box, the name of the application, what status the report is in, what the security role is. So I'm pretending right now to be an authorized official from an entity. And then the period dates of, you know, when it's available to be open and submitted, which can be adjusted. So, and then by the program office, I will say, by Joe, if you wish to extend those. But, and then down here, we have what's called the progress bar. And so this will show you the current status that the report is in. So this report is currently report in progress, and that's typically signified by the blue dot And then as it works its way through the process, the blue dot will move across the progress bar. And you can also see the document status right here as well. On the sliding menu bar here, there's a little gray bar that you can slide up and down, are all of the pages that are within the application, and they are very few. The first one is the cover page. Simply when you want to get into an application or a page rather within the sliding menu bar, you click on the page name in the app on the sliding menu bar, and it brings up the information. And then what this page looks for is it actually looks for an entity contact that you can put in here. And you can click save up here in the right-hand corner when you are finished, and it will save the page. Now, it's important to note we've got these little square boxes here on the pages that need to be completed and submitted. When there is a checkbox in the square, the checkbox tells you that the application page or the report page has been saved and there are no errors. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some important information. And I think this was a little bit of fun. I was typing in for Joe in our test system, asking if he was having fun testing because he was new to this process as well. And so any important information that Joe would want you to have would be in this here that might have deadlines or links to resources or what have you. You will click save again. And then as we work down to the next page, which is called project summary, there are several little boxes on the page that you would need to fill out. I do want to show you that if you click save without entering any information on the page, one, you're going to get this attention box with all these little do not signs that's telling you you have to fill out these sections of this page. And then as well, the icon over here next to the project summary is going to have an exclamation point on it. If you have any exclamation points in any of these pages right here, it's not going to let you submit the report. So that's important to know. You must have all checkboxes. And the report as well must be submitted by your entity authorized official. So what we'll do is we'll just type in a little bit of information. We have 500 characters here. If for some reason you want to type in and you want to elongate the box so you can see more of what you've typed in, you can click and drag the corner of the box. And then we'll select a couple of boxes here. We'll type in a sample name, sample phone number, whoops, and an email. And then when we click save, all of the errors should clear from the page and we should get our check mark. And then on our required attachments page, there is a couple of different items that Joe is asking you to upload here. So what you can simply do is type in the name of the file, and then you can select what you want and you can navigate to something on your computer. And we will just go ahead and select one of our sample security forms. And then here's another test document or another item that we're going to be uploading because Joe wants us to add two different types of documents. So this is the form 70. And then this is obviously the RFP. And then we'll select, we'll scroll down, we'll grab another document and we'll attach it here. And then when we're done with the clip page, we'll go ahead and click save. And then we've got another checkbox. So really it's just taken us a couple of minutes to fill out this page. And then when you're done, if you are the authorized official, you will see status options here and you will click submit report. It's important when all of these pieces are done that you click submit report so it can get into Joe's hands and Joe can do his thing. And then when it gets submitted, If there happens to be any other errors, like maybe you've had some exclamation points or something, they will show up on this page and they'll remind you to go do something. And then you can see that the report has been submitted and the status has changed to submit report. And then it's important to know that when Joe starts reviewing them, he'll change them to review in progress. If there's something that's missing, maybe for some reason you accidentally uploaded a picture of one of your pets instead of the actual document, he can send it back for modifications for you to upload the correct document. And then you can submit the modifications. And then if once the time comes that Joe has finished his review, and if he has approved your review, he will change the status to report accepted. And at that time, when it becomes report accepted, in between the program information and on here, we would have a little section that will give you your conditional award letter. So you'll be able to print off that conditional award letter, or in our paperless society, leave it right there. And then that will be in your application and you'll be complete. If it is not acceptable, for whatever reason that might be, Joe can change that status to report not acceptable. And that might mean that you might reach out and try to understand why, unless there have been notes or something given in the application. So it's really, sounds like there's probably more work you have to do ahead of time, and this process should only take you a few minutes to complete and submit. Does anybody have any questions? Don't know if I should still share, if anybody wants me to explain anything further.
Nothing in the chat, Monica.
Okay, well, I'll stop.
We have reached the end here, folks. So this is the Q&A portion. If you've got a question you need or want to ask, do us a favor, raise your hand. We'll be happy to have you unmute. We'll take you in order. Or did we just do that amazing of a job? I suppose also. I'm going to do the teacher thing. I'm going to kind of wait just in case. You never know if you got those shy kids in the back that don't want to raise their hand just yet. I guess while I've got the time, I will reiterate this. This is the grant that is going to support up to 10% of the one-time project costs, right? So if you're an 80% district or higher, using this grant program means you're going to pay zero out of pocket after reimbursement on the one-time project costs, okay? If you're less than 80%, you're still going to get 20% taken up through this grant. So 1/5 of your build costs, poof, after reimbursement. So poof may be a bit of a stretch, but still, it's a good chunk of change, and it's money that you won't either have to pay back, so assuming that you do your rate correctly, or have to find in your own budget.
We did have a question come through. Is this district specific, or can the ISD apply for all ISD members?
As long as you've got the sign off and the ability to apply for selected members, then yes. If you have Form 470, 479s, I believe, for all districts, then you're good to go. But you have to have the permission. No, the LOAs, excuse me, the LOAs. I don't know why I said 479, forgive me. The LOAs are what's important. If you want to do that for districts, you got to have the permissions, and USAC will ask for permission for all within your applying consortium, right? So good question. So thank you. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, maybe I'll piggyback on that as well. I mean, ISDs can, from a cash flow perspective, if they're all eligible entities, and this is something where the funds have to be paid out and then reimbursed, is there anything saying that the LEAs have to contribute out of their funds to this, or can this, how does that work? If it's going to be very close to a wash for some districts, pass through, or whatever percentage remains. Any guidance on that? And that actually wasn't my question. That was just a really good question that preceded mine and made me wonder that.
Well, when we talk about ISDs applying on behalf of districts, Um, the vendor doesn't care who pays as long as somebody pays, right? And USAC doesn't care who gets reimbursed as long as that person or that entity was the one that, as the facilitating entity, you're going to be the one, if it's an ISD in your case, in your question, right? You would be receiving the reimbursement. So we have seen where ISDs have gone out to do projects using grant money like this and have broken it apart, flat fee across everybody. We've seen it where they've said, well, your portion is this, your portion is that, and local districts kick in that way. We've also seen it, I've heard tell about it, the ISD is like, we're just going to eat it. And that's all between you and the locals which you represent and would be connecting as part of this program. There's no rules for me about that. So that's a you folks doing your thing in your space thing.
Okay, that's great to hear. If I may ask my original question, and I think you kind of covered this during a metal meeting, but when you say rip and replace, there's also an option to create a secondary non-duplicative pathway that would help bolster the resiliency of that connections, right? So It doesn't have to just be rip and replace. It can be secondary connections.
Yes. And well, I will never say no to that. USAC might. So what I get to do in this, I say, well, of course you can have money. They give you their money, right? And so USAC is kind of the arbiter here. They're going to make the decision of whether your project is approvable or not. If you're approvable through E-rate, good news, you get my money. If you're not approvable through E-rate, well, you would be if you get approved through E-rate. Since you're not going to, then you won't get my money. That's how I get to be the nice guy, Mark. I don't have to tell anybody that. I'm letting USAC be the bad guy, and shucks, wouldn't it be nice? But that's another example of what we've seen. Since you brought that up, Mark, let's talk about some of the other stuff we funded. We funded the run from the high school to the football field. Okay, like these are things that we've done. We connect buildings on campus, right? We just need a connection out to this building, as long as it's not a non-instructional facility. Then we can connect it as an eligible E-rate Category 1 recipient of this service.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the info.
Welcome. Looks like we got another one here in the chat, right, Ashley?
Yeah. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Jason, for correcting me on the letter of agency. I did say that incorrectly. Yeah, ISDs would need the letter of agency, but let's go back to the question from Josh Heiner. Assume that the ISD would have to form an E-rate consortium with their districts, correct? And apply under that consortium then? Short answer is yes. In a lot of cases, ISDs are applying for their member districts in one form or another. I mean, you're kind of a special case where you've got, I don't know, a pretty large geographical area. So yes, if you're going to apply for all of your entities, you're going to need to put them under a consortium ban of some kind. And then, as Jason reminded me to say correctly, have the LOAs as the authority to procure on their behalf. Appreciate the assist, Jason.
No problem, Joe. I do have a quick question, Joe.
Sure.
The matching fund is at 5 million?
4.8.
4.8 million. What's the plan for when that runs out of funds?
We get to ask him all over again, Jason.
Oh, shit.
When COVID hit, I don't know how many people know this, but when COVID hit, we had an established matching fund, right? When COVID hit, we as a state government said, we have no idea what's going to happen next. We're going to pull back any general fund dollar that isn't been spent on something or isn't obligated for something yet. My matching fund was one of the things that got yanked back, right? So we've fought for another 2.5 years, basically, to get this thing reestablished. And we got the words no a lot. But with help from local districts and ISDs saying this is something we want, this is something we need, and this is something that can help not just our schools, our E-rate entities, schools and libraries, right? This is also helping our communities with the ability to cost allocate out additional strands as part of these bills to serve non-E-rate entities. That's the very important selling point. We got shot down because some of the big vendors in the state didn't want it a few times. then, lo and behold, with good pressure from the grassroots organizations through their M words, etc., I think we turned enough heads, and we got what I wanted was 5 million. I'll definitely take 4.8. If this goes in 1 year, I'll be ecstatic, and I'll be the first guy to go knock on doors of legislators to restart it. Don't feel bad taking this money. It'll probably take 2, but I've got word from at least one E-rate consultant that they have been working gangbusters to try and spend it all, and I couldn't be happier. So if ever there comes a point where we need to start picking and choosing, because again, I'm not picking and choosing any applicants through this. I will rank applicants, but that doesn't mean that anybody's going to necessarily miss out on funding, right? Again, it comes down to when you've been approved, and depending on the number of approved builds, we might have to start shifting some money around. $4.8 million, we're talking about up to 10% of any given build. I think we're at least going to get through this year. I definitely think we're going to have a second year of this using these funds. Now, what we do after that, again, Jason, that means we all get together again and we say, hey, this is a really good thing, let's do it again. And then we build the business case showing the successes that we've had previously in the other iteration of this, through this year, and perhaps next year's iteration, right? And then we get to show that the good things that have come from this money allocated by our state legislature.
So just a quick rephrase. If there's more demand in this year than 5 million, how will MDE prioritize? How will you rank?
Well, the eligibility criteria was posted on our michigan.gov/E-rate website. It's a Google Doc that's on there underneath the matching fund. So on that page, I believe it's I can even go to it here in a second. So just pop it up and share it. The idea, of course, being that we have certain criteria, fairly broad, frankly. Always hard to type with an audience. There it is. Let me share here. The chat. So right here, the E-rate grant matching fund. I just popped up over it. Perfect. So this here, I can find my cursor. The E-rate grant information pops up here. This is the criteria. We're going to give extra points to those connections that are needing a phasable fiber connection. You know, if you have less than a gig to your buildings right now, good news, you get extra points. Because that's the BEAD standard, right? 1 gig symmetrical for anchor institutions. If you've got a higher E-rate discount, you get more points. If you have a lack of a self-provision network, you've got a leased line that you're using, just because they're more costly over time, that gets you more points. Any project that connects to the STEM, statewide educational network, we're incentivizing connections to the STEM. Oftentimes that happens through your ISD. As an aside, I guess I'll say this now. If you're a local district thinking about making a connection through your district, you should also be thinking about popping back up to your ISD. Every single ISD has a connection in their header to the Michigan statewide educational network. If you connect to the STEM, there's great things you can get from that, not the least of which is not have to file for your own Category 1 E-rate transport and broadband access. You also get access to DDoS protection, and you get to share services across an intranet with your various connections made on that network. So you can receive or sell services, as many of our ISDs and locals do, through those connections. And then again, I want to make this real clear. The way you get money, you get approved through the E-rate process. As long as I got this up, I want to get that. You get awarded through the E-rate process, they set the number, they give you the 10% extra as built into that award, and then we at the state will match that additional grant add. So that's the criteria. Now, I didn't show you the rubric for analysis and review, but that's the basic content that we're searching for. And again, I really don't think we're going to blow through it this year, Jason. I don't think we're going to have a need to cost allocate anybody this year. Next year, maybe, if all of these builds gets approved. And that would be great. What a wonderful problem to have if that were to happen. Other questions from the group? Thank you for the ones we've gotten so far. It's really great. Oh, Josh has another. Okay. Let's say a district is connecting to the ES and the high school has been replaced an existing lease connection. Let's say the high school is connected back to the SEN by another fiber. And we still say that the ES is connected. You can find ES. I'm sure the context. Connecting to my sense of this project, you can replace connection. Even though they're not connecting directly to the SEN, will be directly connecting to the SEN by the high school building they're connecting to. Well, I suppose that the answer to that question is, if they are connecting to the SEN, are they receiving SEN IA? Connecting to the router, connecting to the switch isn't necessarily as important to me as whether you're receiving SEN IA, because of the cost savings you can receive. Look, people, it's 3 cents a meg right now if you want to connect to the statewide education. That's what you're paying per meg. That's what they've negotiated it down to. So yes, they'll be receiving SEN IA, then yes, that would be considered a connection to the SEN. Good question. Good clarification. Get some good ones here, folks. Anyone else? Again, we'll have this recorded and we'll send it out once the recording is available. We will make it available for folks who haven't been able to join us. And I will include a PDF of the slides just so we can get all those links in case they're needed. All that to vamp just a little bit, see if anybody else has any questions. We'll give it about another 10, 15 seconds, maybe longer. Those of you who know me well know how much I hate silence. This is so hard.
Well, Joe, I'll give you some less silence. If districts wanted to learn more about the basics of E-rate and the overall E-rate program, what's a good source for professional learning?
The USAC website has a ton of tools. They have videos, how-tos of how to, breaking down every single little portion of the program itself. You can also just call your old pal Joe here. This is my job. This is what I do. I'm an E-rate state coordinator, and I'm here to help people who want to know about the E-rate program. You want me to do a one-on-one presentation for you about walking you through the basics of E-rate? I can do that. You want to have me come up to your ISD and do a E-rate presentation for your people? Happy to do that. All you need to do is ask. And so the E-rate website, you can just get a hold of me. And again, for some specific stuff based on what we're trying to do here, some of those links will be included in the PDF, the presentation I can send out. All right, well, we're not seeing anything else in the chat. I've seen the attendance here dwindle a bit, and that's fine. If there are no other questions, folks, feel free to contact us. Let me throw up this slide real quick with our contact information.
One last thing, Joe, in the chat says, so just to be clear, this won't cover IRU costs.
That's correct. Yeah, that would be the definition of a monthly recurring cost, right? So I believe we're showing the right screen there. That's my contact information. The easiest way to get a hold of me is through my email address, elasticj3@michigan.gov. Anything regarding this grant or E-rate specifically, I'm your guy. And Nexus, Ashley Harris from our office, who's been helping us out today, can answer some of your questions in Nexus, can help you through some of that process. My guess is that this is a simple enough process that there won't be a ton of questions, at least. I feel like the people who get into Nexus to do this stuff, this is going to be a breeze. Like the consolidated application is unwieldy, right? This is not that. So this is our contact information. Any other questions? Another good one, Josh. All right. Well, thanks for coming today, folks. We appreciate your time. And like we say, any questions for us, you let us know. Take care, everybody.